Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for pressing play on this video. I'm assuming you did that because you want to hear about returning to work after maternity leave. Well, that's good because that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. This isn't really a tips or tricks video, it's more of a documentation of how I navigated returning to work after maternity leave and my thoughts and feelings surrounding it. I apologise if it's a bit of a muddled video. I have literally just put the camera in front of me and pressed record and started speaking. So let's see how it goes, shall we? If you don't already know me, then my name's Karen. I live in Bristol in the UK with my husband and two little girls. Libby is 5 and April is very nearly 2. So I have now returned to work twice because I've had 2 babies. So before I had my first child, Libby, I was working full-time, 5 days a week, taking home a full-time wage. So was Ryan, my husband, and all was going swimmingly. When I felt pregnant with Libby, obviously it started to come into our heads how we were going to manage that financially. When I was off on maternity leave, my employer does not offer good maternity pay at all. In fact, it's pretty much just the statutory maternity pay. So statutory maternity pay, if you don't know, is 90% of your average earnings for the first 6 weeks of your leave. The best that our employer did was top that up to 100%, an extra 10%, wasn't I lucky? And then after that, for the remaining for another 9 months, you are entitled to statutory maternity pay, which is £100 and something a week. For me, it was working out between £400 and £500 a month, which is obviously a massive step down from my full-time wage. However, we did plan for that. So because I was working full-time, we both were, we didn't have any dependents at that time, we were able to save and make sure that we had enough money to see us through. After you've had your 9 months statutory maternity pay, you are allowed another 3 months off, but that is unpaid. So we were very fortunate that we were able to plan for that also. So I was able to have a full year off. By the time that I'd taken my 9 months paid, my 3 months unpaid and some annual leave that I was owing, I was able to take a full year from the date that I went on maternity leave to the date I went back, which was the day after Libby's first birthday. So I got a full year of her life. And we had a wonderful year off. Libby was a very easy baby. She slept really well. We've made lots of lovely new friends and it was quite a social year off, getting to know each other, getting to know new circles of friends and just navigating our new life. Of course, as the year started to come to an end, I was starting to think, right, I need to go back to work. I always knew that I wanted to go back to work, but it became very apparent that I didn't want to go back full time. That just wasn't going to be for me. So we started to work out what possibilities we could have with me working part-time, and what we figured out was that 2 days a week was going to be the optimum amount of time that I could work. Any more than that and actually we were going to be financially worse off because we'd had to pay for more childcare, and also I would have started paying for tax. So at 2 days I'm just sitting under the tax threshold, so anything more than that I was actually going to be worse off going back to work. So 2 days. Very, very luckily, I was able to negotiate that with my employer quite easily. The girl that had been covering for me while I was on maternity leave was happy to go down to a job share. So that was lovely and easy. I had no issues with that at all. But obviously, we were thinking this is going to be financially more difficult. Yeah. So then we started thinking about childcare. I unfortunately buried my head in the sand quite a lot with this. We couldn't really face sorting that out, but everything fell into place. We found a nice nursery that we were quite happy with, and she got in there and everything went quite swimmingly. On the day that she was due to start nursery, I wasn't actually going back to work then. I had an extra week off, so she had a week at nursery while I was still at home, which was lovely. I got to go shopping, buy bras that weren't breastfeeding bras. It was glorious. But I was starting to definitely get a little bit more anxious about it, but completely honestly, I was ready. I was ready to go back to work. We'd had a wonderful year off together. We'd absolutely made the most of it. I knew I was only going back 2 days a week, and then the rest of the week I'd be with my little girl again. And it was all fine. I went to work. There were a few wobbles to begin with. Things like I felt like my mind was going completely blank. I couldn't even remember how to transfer a phone call. But because I've been in my job for, at that point, I'd been in it 5 years, I felt like I knew it really well. So actually I slipped back into work very, very easily. So that was really great. It was really easy after my first child. My second child returning to work, however, was a completely different story. So when I fell pregnant with April, our second little girl, I had obviously only been working 2 days a week. So this time around, we didn't have the option really to be saving lots of money for when I was on maternity leave, because we had extortionate childcare costs for Libby, which had actually just recently dropped down because she had gone into her 15 hours free funding at that point when I fell pregnant with April, or when I was due to have April. So that did work out quite well, but we still weren't able to save lots and lots of money. So it became quite apparent quite quickly that there was no way I was going to be able to take a year off this time. So in the end, I took 10 months off. I took my 6 weeks full pay, followed by the remaining 9 months at statutory maternity pay. And then with some annual leave and everything, that eventually went up to 10 months. And this time I was not ready to return to work. And that was due to a mixture of factors. April was not an easy baby at all. She did not sleep, really, at all, for about 10 months to a year. She just didn't sleep. I was getting 1.5 to 2 hours at a time in a stretch. Sometimes that would be it for the night. Sometimes I might get another stretch of 2 hours. But basically I was a zombie. It was pretty horrendous, and I did fall into quite bad postnatal depression, which I've not actually spoken about on my channel before, but I did go through it, and I will make a separate video on that because I do feel that actually it's really important to talk about and be open about, and it's only when I started talking about it that I started to get better. So that's a different video entirely, but I had suffered really badly with that, and I really felt like by the time I was ready to go back to work, I had been cheated out of my maternity leave, basically. That's the best way I can describe it. I felt completely and utterly cheated. I had not enjoyed what felt like a single day of my maternity leave. I was tired. I was emotional every day. I felt like I'd been the worst mum in the world because, sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. Because I felt like I'd spent 9 to 10 months just shouting at my children, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't cope. But again, that's a different video altogether. So I felt angry when I was due to return to work. I felt angry that my child hadn't slept, which sounds terrible because I did feel angry at her. I felt angry at me for not being able to cope with it. I felt angry at life in general, that we weren't in a situation where I could just give up work, because we're not in that situation. In an ideal world, I wouldn't have gone back to work at that point. We would have just said, do you know what, Karen, give up work, and when we get through this you can go back. But we weren't in a financial position to be able to do that. So I just felt angry at the situation. But you have to man up. I had to go back to work. We wouldn't make ends meet with our mortgage and all our bills and everything without me going back. So we didn't have the childcare issue to really think about this time, so I didn't have to look for a nursery because Ryan's mum, bless her heart, stepped in and helped us out, because at that time Libby hadn't started school. I went back to work in the March and Libby was due to start school in the September, and there's no way we could have afforded 2 sets of childcare at that point. So Ryan's mum, bless her soul, stepped in and had April 2 days a week for us. And then when Libby started school, we put April into childcare. We decided not to send her to the same nursery that our eldest had gone to because several things had happened there that we just weren't happy about. So when Libby started school, we did have to look for a nursery. At that point I'd been back to work 6 months, so this wasn't a really big hassle, and we found a really great one, and we're really, really happy with where she is now. So childcare for us has never been an issue. I was never worried about leaving either of my children, actually, which I know a lot of people will feel quite strongly about. They'll be really sad to be leaving their child with somebody, but that was never really an issue for me. I was quite happy with where they were going for the day while I was at work. But with April, it wouldn't matter where she was going. I was angry at the situation because we were just starting to get into our groove, and I was cheated out of it. But I will say that all's well that ends well. The first day that I went back to work after having April, I pulled up outside my place of work and I sat in the car and I bawled my eyes out. I just sat there and cried and cried and cried and cried because I did not want to go inside that building. And it's nothing against my workplace, that wasn't the issue. It was that I just wasn't ready. And I really feel a lot of mums will feel me on that one, that we'll be in agreement. But like I said, all's well that ends well. I did get into the swing of work. It's a very interesting dynamic trying to get through a work day when you are seriously sleep deprived. That was a whole challenge on its own. I was used to being very, very switched on at work, and I knew my job inside out. By the time I went back to work after having April, I'd been there nearly 10 years. So I knew it inside out. However, when you are seriously sleep deprived, your brain just does not function. And I felt like a waste of space at work. But thank goodness the girl that's job shared with me, so it was a different girl job sharing this time, she's basically carried me on the days that I have just not been really switched on and on top form. She has come in on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday and just picked up the slack for me. So thank you, Natalie, for doing that for me, because I appreciate that I'm not always 100% present. But yeah. I think another reason why I wasn't ready to go back to work is because we don't plan on having any more children, and I was very aware that that was the last time I was going to have maternity leave and have an extended period of time at home with my children, and I hadn't made the most of it, so that was another reason why I just wasn't ready. Sorry, I just had to move because I had some really dodgy light coming in over me. I'm really sorry that this has been a really rambly video, but I just kind of felt like I wanted to get my feelings out there on camera. I've been back to work a year now and I've still not made this video, no matter how many times I thought that I would. So today was the day, just switched it on and started talking. I really hope that despite me rambling, that it's actually been helpful. If you've been feeling like I was when I went back to work the second time, I know that it's really, really lonely feeling like that, and gut-wrenching. If you've got any questions about returning to work, then feel free to ask me. Just leave them in the comments below and I will get back to you, and I'll be completely honest in my answers. Yeah, so if you need any support, then please do leave questions in the comments box below. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up. I would love it if you would subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you very, very soon for another video. Bye!